So I did not have anything planned for a video for this week. I have been in a little bit of a recording slump because I just published a book and all I have been wanting to do at all is write my new book. It has consumed my life. Every single waking moment of the day, all I can think about is this new book that I'm writing. I go to sleep thinking about it. I wake up having dreamt about it. I'm dreaming about the characters. I'm driving along, like listening to music, thinking about all the different things that the characters would be doing and how this song could relate to the characters in the book. So I just spent the afternoon writing and then realized I have to post something to YouTube tomorrow. So I'm going to sit down and do an extremely low effort video and give you a tour of my id list. I made a video maybe a couple of months ago talking about the psychology of writing and this podcast that I listened to by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And in that podcast, she talks about having an id list and keeping an id list. Well, first of all, in that podcast, she talks about how readers mostly read books for pleasure and that our job as writers is to write books that appeal to people's pleasure centers and put as many pleasurable things in our stories as possible. I'll link the video that I made on this down in the description below just so you can kind of get a better idea as to what I'm talking about. But she talks about how important it is to keep an id list, which is essentially just a list of things that you consume in media that you really, really like, that appeal to you for some reason on a deep psychological level. You may not understand why they appeal to you, but there's just something about them that makes you really, really enjoy it in media for some reason. And then you can put it on your id list so that when you're brainstorming stories or you're fleshing out worlds, you can go back to your id list and pull things from it to include in those stories and those worlds. So I'm going to share with you my id list just for funsies. This is a list that is always changing. Sometimes I change my mind on things and I'll delete things, or I'm always adding to this, but this is what it is as of right now in 2025. I have not added to it in a little while, so this is just kind of what it is right now, but I'm going to share with you some of the things on the list because who knows, maybe you'll hear a couple things on my list and be like, oh, I like that too, and then you can add them to yours. And please send help because I have not been this addicted to a book idea and to a book in such a long time. I'm now like 65,000 words in, I think. Like I'm almost halfway done with a manuscript. And I'm just absolutely flying through it. Like I'm 65,000 words in and I've been going for like 3 weeks. Like I cannot think about anything else. So the first thing in the plot section of my id list is lab accidents. I'm almost convinced that this started after watching the Spider-Man musical, Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, when I was 13. And that was probably one of my biggest obsessions when I was a kid. There's this song in this musical called DIY World where they talk all about like the genetic experiments that they're doing, and then halfway through the show, and I know this is a thing in the Spider-Man universe as well, but they do they have experiments that go wrong and they turn into like genetic mutated versions of themselves. Like some person turns into like a hive of bees and like some person the guy turns into the Green Lantern, and they're just like everyone is somehow mutated, and that I was obsessed with when I was a kid. And that is why the book I wrote in high school, Imperfect, is all about genetic modification. That's why I've always kind of been interested in like there's some sort of lab accident gone wrong and like there's some sort of mutation, and bonus points if this includes some sort of body mutilation or like something different going on with someone's body. Love it for some reason, so it's on here. The next one is kid in a tough life being broken out and finding out he's important. Secrets in small towns. I love secrets in small towns, like any kind of small town murder, any kind of small town where like everybody kind of knows each other, and as you're reading you're almost getting like the tea on all the people that live in the town, and bonus points if it's like a murder mystery and you can connect all of the stuff that happened. I live in a super tiny town and I just love the trope of like having stuff happen in a small town, especially when it's murder. I don't want any murder in my small town, but I like reading about it in other people's small towns where the town seems like something and then ends up having a very seedy underbelly. Obviously, this one will come as a surprise to nobody. Ghosts in any form of literature, I will just devour pretty much any ghost story ever. I especially love when ghosts are used as literary devices to like talk about things like mental illness or things like that, or when the character's trauma is manifested or represented as a ghost, and that ghost like follows them around and haunts them in some way. Like it's a literal manifestation of somebody's trauma. I was obsessed with Beloved in college, so this kind of comes from that. All right, this also comes from an obsession that I had when I was in high school. The French Revolution, especially the Barricade Boys. I was a musical theater nerd in high school. I did a ton of theater, and my favorite musical of all time was Les Mis. It's always been Les Mis. I love Les Mis. I had crushes on the Barricade Boys. I was obsessed with the idea of like standing up for what's right and like dying on the barricade, even though you know that like you're never gonna make it out, just like standing up for what you believe in and like dying in that very poetic way. I thought there was just something that scratched some sort of emotional center in my brain. Like I love that show, and that is a big moving thing for me. Like stories about the French Revolution really move me. Next is painful transformations, especially when coupled with like lab accidents and genetic modification, or like, you know, the kind of superhero or villain origins where they get like, you know, they have something happen to them and then it's an extremely painful transformation into this new version of themselves. Like the guy that falls into the vat of electric eels, or like they're experimented on and like actually forcibly like changed into something else. I'm not talking about like that horrible horror movie about the guy that's like surgically transformed into a walrus or like human centipede or anything like that. Like that stuff grosses me out so much. I could never ever write about that, or I can't even watch those movies. But anything that involves some sort of like superhero powers, genetic modification, transformation, I'm all over that. Evil occurring on a historical regular basis. Like a great evil that has awoken, like, you know, awakes every 25 years or every 10 years or something like that. Like in It. I love how you can be telling a horror story and then go back in generations and find out that it's happened before and learn from it happening before, and like figure out how you can confront it now based on how it happened before. I haven't been able to figure out how to work that into a story of mine yet, but I love it, and one day I will. Okay, for some reason, getting ice cream is on here. I guess I like it when characters get ice cream. Also, the next one on this list is corn on the cob for some reason. I'm gonna assume I like it when characters eat corn on the cob. Printers going off with creepy messages. Oh, this one's cool. This is like kind of a microtrope of like, you know, when the printer goes crazy and like there's like messages written on it. I must have been watching a horror movie and then just wrote that on there for fun. The next one is the draft, or like loved ones getting picked for the draft. Any stories with this involved just like gut me. Like this gets me emotionally so hard. It's anything to do with like loved ones being drafted, you being drafted, people going off to war with their siblings if they go off to war, like losing your loved ones in war when you're also there, or even if they get lost in war and you don't, like just anything like that really, really affects me. Any kind of trials or games, like the Hunger Games or Squid Game, or just anything that involves like creepy games and competition between people where you die if you like when you compete in them. More like Squid Game and less like Saw. Like I can't deal with Saw. I cannot watch Saw. It freaks me out too much, but Squid Game keeps me on the edge of my seat. Like I cannot look away. I think this just ties back to humans' inherent interest in competition and how people just have this natural psychological interest in competition and seeing who wins, especially when the stakes are so high that you die if you lose. I love wilderness survival too, like anything that has to do with trying to survive outside. I am a super outdoorsy person. I just love being outside all the time, so anything that has to do with that, I'm all over. I think this already deeply describes why I love the Hunger Games so much. I literally spoke too soon. The next one is being trapped in a place where things want to kill you and having to power through and get out. Fear of bodily mutilation is in here. Like I'm just really freaked out by any kind of bodily mutilation, kind of like what I was talking about before with like Human Centipede or Would You Rather, like that movie, or Saw or Tusk or anything like that just really, really freaks me out. I can't handle that. I like the genetic experimentation, but the bodily mutilation stuff just grosses me out. Ritual sacrifice always has freaked me out. I am blaming this on Narnia. And now we'll move on to character. So the first thing I have on my characters list is evil families. By this, I mean families where there are like a lot of different moving parts and people that are morally gray with ambiguous intentions, and like not a family that you would ever want to be friends with, but a family that's interesting psychologically, like the family in the movie Knives Out. Of course, the next one on this list is ghosts. Evil dolls. I don't think I was referring to Chucky. I think I was just like, those porcelain dolls with the eyes, like, kind of really freaked me out. So I guess that's why that ended up there. Serial killers that skin people. I think I had just watched Silence of the Lambs. The sweet, nice guy with actual personality. Not just like a doormat for the main character to walk all over, but somebody who's nice and sweet and a guy who is not weak, like who is strong and kind. That is not something that you see very often in books. Big casts of super traumatized kids. I love a big cast of characters, and I love a big found family group dynamic, and having every single character have their own extremely tragic backstory is something that really gets to my heart. I really love it when a bunch of people can just have a really, really tough time of things and then find each other and then create their own found family, and then everything is really cute. Next on this list is badass little kid revolutionaries. So I'm only going to assume that can be referring to Gavroche. And I just find them so cute. Like, just seeing little kids wrapped up in a revolution that are like spunky and sassy and like hand the villain's butt to them on a silver platter, and like they're the only ones that will like talk back to the villain. Next is the crazy boyfriend from Heathers. Because, I don't know, there's just like something about JD, and I know he's crazy, I know he's like a red flag, and he like tried to blow up the school, but there's just something about that dynamic that affects my emotions for some reason, and that is on that list for that reason. Like, if you've seen the musical, you'll know that song where he's like banging on the door, wanting her to open the door. You'll know what I'm talking about. This next one on this list should not be there, like using scissors to kill. That is something that should go under plot, but apparently for some reason that ended up under character. But apparently I like it when people use scissors to kill people in books and stories. I think I put that on there after I watched Us, the horror movie. Moving on to location. Up first, we have creepy circuses. I love me a good creepy circus. Bonus points if it has vintage sideshow vibes, or like kind of 1940s vibes, like American Horror Story Freak Show, but not quite so scary. Like, American Horror Story Freak Show really, really freaked me out. I could not finish that show. It just was giving me so many nightmares, and that is a little too intense for me, but those kind of vibes, I like them. Another shout out for small towns with secrets. Corn mazes. Bad things happening in the bathroom. I actually don't know what I was thinking when I put that on there. You know what I'm pretty sure it was that I had just watched It, and there was that scene where she's in the bathroom and there's like all that scary stuff and blood or whatever that comes out of the sink and pours all over the bathroom, and I thought that was super creepy. So that's what I put that on there, but the phrasing of that could have been better. Carnival games. I guess I like those. Freak shows and sideshows connecting to the creepy circus thing. A lot of these show up and they stay, so this is, I've got a lot of id list stuff on there. Halloween haunted houses with the actors. Every time I go to one of those, I think that I want to write a slasher book set in one of those where like the actors actually like cut up the people, but I still haven't been able to figure out an angle on one of those, because like the law enforcement question like would be a big question. Like, would I just do it over the course of one night, or would I do it over the course of like multiple days? But if it was multiple days, then like there would be some, like the police would have caught the people. Like it's unclear how I could handle that question. I don't know. So I haven't found an angle on it yet, but one day maybe I will do it, because literally every single time I go every year, I'm like, I want to do this. There you go. That is the current version of my id list. It's not super fleshed out, like I still need to add a lot of stuff to it, but maybe you heard some things on this list that you also want to put on your own id list. Like, you're like, oh, but yeah, bad things happening in the bathroom. That's going on my id list. But go watch the video that I made on Jennifer Lynn Barnes and her thoughts on psychology and writing, because I found what she had to say extremely helpful. I always make sure that I like map out the different psychological buttons I'm hitting with every single book idea that I write. I sometimes incorporate stuff from my id list. I incorporate a lot of id list stuff into the They Stay. So yeah, that's the video. Thank you for watching. I'd be super grateful if you had a second, if you could like this video and also subscribe to my channel. My name is Claire Fraze, and I'm an award-winning author who makes videos sharing actionable writing tips that helped me make my own writing better. I hope you have a good week, everyone. And as always, happy writing.